This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is Are the Fat Cats About to Get Slaughtered? Leader Fan Radio Network.
Tweet that.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes? No. Now, 2 minutes and 1 second past the hour, 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you to a Thursday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a slightly overcast weekday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, host of the program, Guardsy produces, and we are again going the distance today, which means 6:30 this evening. 3 until 6:30. Dr. Dan's inbox is scheduled to be opened at 4:30 unless we don't get enough letters. And I guess we could then move it to 5:30.
Hang on a second. Say that sentence again. Unless we don't get enough letters.
The only reason we would want to delay Dr. Dan's inbox from the usual 4:30 to 5:30 is if we have a shortage of letters.
We may have a shortage of topics, but not a shortage of letters.
Fair to say it's a variation on one theme, largely?
One particular family.
Okay.
Maybe one particular individual.
I gotcha.
But some good auxiliary ways to get into it.
Oh, good.
Which I
That's
also
what we're always
like.
looking for. That's always where creativity is what we're absolutely looking for. How about this? Little League World Series, a Grand Slam dong. How rare is that? How about that? South Carolina is running up the score on poor little Massachusetts. In the second inning, South Carolina is up 8-0 after a Grand Slam Little League World Series. How many of those have been hit in the history of the Little League World Series?
Probably more than you think.
That's probably true.
Because the 12-year-olds, they'll serve them up every once in a while.
Strapping lad at the plate, by the way. I'm not suggesting he was on any kind of, artificial, like steroids or anything, but he's strapping.
You're asking for his birth certificate?
Big guy. Well, possibly. I don't know. So it sounds like the inbox will be in its regular time, 4:30 this afternoon. However, you can still contribute between now and then, and if you tickle Guardsy's fancy, you might well be included. At 3:30, bottom of this hour, our geopolitical big knocker, Michael Hurley, will join. He's Edina's own longtime contributor to this program when it comes to international crises in particular.
Actual Edina, not Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's a great
Edina.
point. Actual Edina. That's true. There should be a separate category for those who are actually authentically Edina.
Yes, and
not
he's
that
one of
they
them.
blew through or they have a house there, right?
Exactly.
And we'll talk largely about two subjects that are front and center: Gaza and what the Israelis are saying they are going to do. And also the big summit meeting, which I believe is scheduled for tomorrow. The President of the United States meeting with Vladimir Putin. When's the last time Trump and Putin met? I think it's been a long time. I don't think there's been a lot of summits. In any case, we'll talk about where that might go regarding Ukraine, of course. So we'll go A-section heavy between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. We'll keep an eye on Vikings joint practice, day 2 with the New England Patriots. I think it was Tana broadcasted from there today, correct?
Yes, and yesterday.
So was Lavelle on with them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So because one of the texts I see is that Lavelle shouldn't be calling the Common Man's listeners names. He's the biggest Polad butt kisser there is.
Wow.
Doesn't want to upset the owners. Now, I love him. You love him. There's only one Lavelle, right?
That's it.
But I would suggest that he once again oversold his Polad savagery in today's Lavelle column. I mean, it took some shots, but I thought there was a lot of more equivocating than needed. But I'll ask him about that when he joins us for his regular time on Friday. I don't know what the names were that Lavelle. Did you hear that part?
No, I heard that he said he was not himself a Polad pocket protector as alleged.
Really?
But I didn't hear him call.
Now, if he was using today's column, StarTribune.com, as proof of his willingness to separate from the poll ads.
Falling a little short?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think it was kind of a winding, I would not exactly call it savage road. And, of course, that's the road I love, Savagery Lane. That's where I grew up. I mean, it's not my fault. You can't blame me for any of that. Speaking of savagery, how about our guy Kernan? So Kevin Kernan, I retweeted. He's got one of those columns that covers about 9 subjects.
Oh, yeah.
Ball9.com.
Yep.
And eventually he got a nice chunky section on your Minnesota Twins and the poll ad announcement and other things Twins related. And it was worthy of any tabloid savagery that I've ever read in the New York Post or the New York Daily News. So congratulations to Kevin Kernan. Fat cats, do they ever get slaughtered? Mark Cuban suggested that there's a chance that if the NFL keeps pretending it's bulletproof, that those fat cats might well get slaughtered. I don't think that has materialized for the reasons that he threw out there, which was we can't keep adding days to the schedule, right? He was anti, I think, Thursday night football, whatever. I don't think that's hurt the NFL.
Doesn't appear to.
I don't know that it's, revolutionized the schedule, but it certainly has not hurt. But is there another way in which the fat cats of the National Football League might have to finally be afraid of getting slaughtered? There's a local connection to this story, a significant local connection to this story. You familiar with B-Flow?
I have, yes, of course.
Brian Flores.
I'm glad he's still the defensive coordinator.
For now. 29-page ruling came down earlier today. A 3-judge panel found that claims made by Brian Flores against the Giants, Broncos, Texans, and the NFL should proceed not in arbitration, where guess who's the final arbiter?
I'm guessing the commissioner?
Roger Goodell. How convenient is that? It'll be a court. It'll be a judge. Maybe a jury. I don't know. Here's the statement from the lawyers for Flores. And again, they're advocating for him, but it's hard to argue with this. The significance of the Second Circuit's decision cannot be overstated. For too long, the NFL has relied on a fundamentally biased and unfair arbitration process, even in cases involving serious claims of discrimination. This ruling sends a clear message. That practice must end. This is a victory not only for NFL employees, but for workers across the country and for anyone who believes in transparency, accountability, and justice. National Football League, you might have noticed, replied with, we respectfully disagree with the panel's ruling and will be seeking further review. Now, can you appeal an appellate court's ruling, maybe to the Supreme Court? I don't know, because I think in the other case that indicates the possibility that the National Football League now has to worry about being a fat cat getting slaughtered, John Gruden won in court on another claim regarding him wanting basically to go public with his battles. He says he basically got run out of the league and that there were a lot of irresponsible leaking that took place that led to that.
Yeah, with the emails.
NFL says, we'll talk about it in arbitration. And in this case, the Nevada Supreme Court 3 days ago said, not so fast, Mr. Goodell. They also ruled against that effort for the claims against the league to go into arbitration. Now, the NFL in that case has said we're going to appeal to the Supreme Court, but that doesn't mean the Supreme Court's going to listen. And again, I'm not predicting that the National Football League is about to get slaughtered in a real sense in terms of the game's going to go away or people are going to stop liking football. They like football too much. We all do. We know that. We get that. But in a legal sense, these are really significant cases because there's the possibility that, and now probability that Roger can't be judge, jury, and executioner as often as the National Football League would prefer on these cases, which if you think about it logically, in all seriousness, seems ludicrous from the start.
Yes.
The commissioner is going to decide now, was there racial discrimination against Brian Flores by any of these teams? We've looked into it, and I've ruled no, there wasn't. Because obviously that's going to be quite a stain in the National Football League if it goes forward and it's proven, right? What are the odds of commissioners say, well, they got us? They got us. There's no question. B-Flow's got us.
Well, technically, isn't the commissioner part of his job and keeping his job is keeping the owners happy?
Yes,
don't the owners hire the commissioner?
There's no question
in a weird way about that.
There's absolutely no question about that. So again, these are pretty significant rulings here, and definitely put the NFL on the defensive in that sense, in a way that they have rarely been. And I guess we all knew, I guess I knew, that the commissioner had this much power. But you do look at it logically and you say, are you kidding me? Are you serious? How can this whole process be taken seriously? How can, again, the commissioner be allowed to rule on in the Gruden case, for example? Is all of this not a fairly direct conflict of interest? That's certainly how it looks to me. Does it not to you?
Yes. Not the first time.
Is it not in a way stunning that it's lasted this long? It's 2025. You go,
yeah.
How is this even possible?
But they've slowly but surely accumulated so much power.
There's no question about that.
And things have been collectively bargained and all of these things. So they're very smart. I mean, Goodell's an attorney at heart, right? And I'm sure they've got some high-powered attorneys as well. So they figure out how to make it advantageous for them. Again,
maybe there's appeals to the appeals. I have absolutely no idea. And then how long is that going to go? Because obviously you try to extend the process, and then I'm presuming what you hope also is in the interim, as you string this out legally as long as you can, maybe we can get some kind of maybe B-Flow will agree to some kind of a settlement. Or maybe, we can convince Gruden to okay, let's let bygones be bygones. We'll figure something out. We'll write you a check, whatever the case may be. But I think Gruden, B-Flow hasn't been very vocal about this stuff, right? As he's continued to be coordinator here. He sort of so that's stuff I'll leave my lawyers to that. Gruden, I think, has become more and more vocal about saying, I'm not going to go, if you guys thought I was going to go away quietly, and by the way, I don't know what the case is. There was some pretty disturbing stuff that was leaked about Gruden himself. How much of this is Gruden trying to change the subject? It's all fair game. But in a legal sense, to take these two rulings within days of each other on the chin regarding some pretty significant issues that, Roger will rule on that. Roger will take care of that. That's convenient. But is it really the American way? That's the, I think, legitimate question that must be asked. And then there's the PR part of this. If this case with B-Flow goes public, with presumably these specific examples, allegations offered up by Flores attorneys, etc., how bad is this going to look for the NFL? That's part of the arbitration thing. We can keep it quiet. We just have internal discussions within this arbitration. There doesn't have to be a public record about any of that, correct?
Yes.
That's also part of the thing that is on the basis of these rulings going away. Now, who knows? Maybe his attorneys will not be able to prove the case. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty, right? Same with Gruden. But the dirty laundry ain't going to be hidden anymore, I guess, regarding whatever these allegations are and whatever took place in either case. So they're interesting stories, both developing within just a couple of days of one another as well.
Comedy legend Bill Engvall is back at Treasure Island Resort and Casino Friday, September 5th. The blue-collar comedy tour icon may have retired, but he just couldn't stay away from the stage. Here's your sign to catch him live for another round of side-splitting humor. All the details at TICasino.com.
It was the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan, New York, that upheld Judge Valerie Caproni's ruling that B-Flow can proceed with claims against the league and three teams: Denver, Giants, Houston. Gunbelt tight. This appeals court decision was written by Circuit Judge Jose A. Cabranes. And he said that the NFL's rules forcing Flores to submit his claims to arbitration to go in front of Pete Rozelle, well, no, that'd be a long time ago. Now it's Roger Goodell, do not have the protection of the Federal Arbitration Act because they provide, quote, for arbitration in name only. The Second Circuit said the NFL Constitution's arbitration provision contractually provides for no independent arbitral, arbitral forum, no bilateral dispute resolution, and no procedure. Instead, they write, or Judge Cabranes writes, it offends basic presumptions of our arbitration jurisprudence by forcing claims to be decided by the NFL's principal executive officer. I think that is a fancy way of saying, well, how can we, even if he tells us he's earnest, how can anybody possibly trust that the commissioner of the National Football League is going to be in any way, shape, or form an independent arbiter, ruling or hearing, reading, listening to evidence, and then coming up with a ruling. So stay tuned. There may be more. National Football League, they got some pretty fancy owners. Or I should say lawyers.
Yes, they do. A lot of them.
But there's no question these are jolting losses for the moment, twice in 1 week. And the NFL doesn't lose twice very many weeks of the year in any way, shape, or form. Minnesota Timberwolves schedule is out. Most of you probably know that by now. And you can cue Sally Field. They like us.
Yeah.
They really, really like us like never before. 28 of our 82 regular season games are national TV games. 28 out of 82. We start, sadly, I think for the third straight year on the road.
Right.
With a 2-game road trip. First at Portland, and then at L.A., correct? I think that's one of our first national games. This is the second game of the season against the Lakers.
On Prime, yes.
That's Prime, exactly.
Yep.
And then we got a nice, at that point, after that, we got a nice, I would call it, I don't know what you call it, I would call it a nice little homestand. Wouldn't you? After that? I mean, it's 2 games, or is it 3?
It's actually 3.
It's 3, that's right.
Yep.
3-game homestand. Give us our schedule. Well, in fact, here it is. I got it right in front of me now. I just had the wrong pages dialed up. So when we come back after starting the season 2-0 by beating Portland and the Lakers back-to-back, when I say back-to-back, I mean Wednesday, Friday. October 22 is our season opener at Portland. And then Friday, October 24, is that Prime video game against the Lakers. Our home opener, nice Sunday game, 6 p.m. against the Indiana Pacers. The next night, we host the Nuggets. That's a Peacock game. And then Wednesday, 2 nights later, it's the Lakers again. So we see the Lakers twice.
Yes.
Within the first week of the season, correct?
And that is their only trip to Minneapolis until the postseason.
Until the postseason. That's an ESPN game. And we're on everything, right? We've got, I thought I counted 5 NBC games. Am I wrong?
You are wrong.
Oh.
You're wrong. So I'll just read you the list.
Okay.
7 on ESPN.
Okay.
7 on Prime. 6 on NBC.
Okay, 6, all right.
4 on ABC and 4 on Peacock. And then the rest, NBA TV, I would imagine.
As I understand it, and maybe we haven't talked about this enough, although there's plenty of time to get to it. I mean, if you're an NBA fan, the the downside of all these platforms is you got to figure out who's on what.
And pay for it if you don't have it.
And then try to go back from, on your remote, from cable to a stream, and that gets cranky, or the direct TV. But you also, what was the other point that was frustrating me about the schedule, or that I wonder? Now my train of thought is gone. I lost it. But we certainly can't complain about the number of games, right? I think there's 4 teams that are on nationally more than we are. I think we were number 5 is what I read.
Wow, okay. 4
teams on more in terms of national TV appearances. So that's pretty good.
It's great. good variety with all the different networks. I think Harlan's on Prime now, right? Because he made the move
that's correct.
From TNT. Michael Grady's going to be on, I believe, Prime as well, if not Peacock. So it's all good. Yeah. And there's national games like every night now. That's the other cool part.
Well, that's exactly where I was going, is that if you're an NBA fan, you literally now, instead of saying, okay, well, let's see, well, there's Tuesday games, Thursday games on TNT and ESPN, or they have one and twice. Now, literally, basically every night, right? There, if you want to find it and you want to pay for it, there is at least on paper, a good national TV matchup for you to get excited about or to be curious.
Everybody's kind of got their night, right? Prime is going to be Fridays and Saturdays mostly.
Right.
NBC's a lot of Tuesdays. ABC kind of bounces around, but they've always got the weekend slate as well. And then Peacock is going to be Mondays. So you do kind of have everybody's got their set night. I think that was part of the idea to spread it around.
And we already knew we were on Christmas, correct?
Yep.
That part was already clear.
In Denver.
In Denver.
Our NBA Cup, we had those cakewalks last couple of years, which we still couldn't get out of.
Yes.
Like easier groups. We've got the champs in our group, Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Is that true?
They're one of our NBA Cup groups, or teams. So my dream of ever going to the semis and finals in Vegas, we're up against it.
The Thunder, Lakers, Warriors, and Knicks
makes sense.
Are the only teams on national TV more often.
Makes sense.
Celtics dead.
Tatum.
Yeah, they're just obviously not the same. Pacers dead.
Halliburton.
Because he's gone, right? And probably for the whole season or most of it again. So that I guess that stands to reason. I thought maybe the networks would fall in love too quickly with the Rockets because of the Durant move.
Right.
They are on opening night, I think, of the season.
Yes.
But not so much in terms of we're still ahead of them on a national schedule. So there you have it. And then if there's other nuggets, I looked like month to month in terms of road home, and it all looked pretty similar, although I think the last month we have more road games than we do home. I don't know what that will matter at that point in terms of jockeying for playoff position or not. But we are very well represented. I mean, we probably, until, 2 years ago, had we had, in the history of the franchise, 28 national regular season appearances, I'm not sure we had.
Probably not.
I mean, or it might be close,
but
that's it. That's over the history of the franchise. And now it's
buckle up.
1 out of every 3, right? What's 27 times 3?
I'm not doing that math.
27 times 3 is 81, isn't it? So if we're on 28 of it,
is it? Yeah, it is.
It is. So if we're on 28 of 82, that's 1 out of every 3 games were a national TV game.
Pretty good.
Which also means
got to be ready.
No excuses.
Got to be ready to go.
Got to be ready to play. We'll come back and go to the A section with our good friend Michael Hurley. Much to discuss regarding the Middle East and that Putin-Trump summit. We'll get to all of that with him, and maybe he'll have a schedule reaction as well. Michael Hurley is... Some very intriguing reviews coming out from day 2 of the Vikings-Patriots joint practices at TCO Performance Center, where originally we were scheduled to be, but then they moved up the schedule. And we're going to get to all of that after the top of the hour. So don't go away for that. Dr. Dan's inbox will be opened up at 4:30. Michael Hurley is kind enough to join us now via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Hold on 1 second as I try to reach for the... There we go. Michael, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you fine, Dan. How are you?
We're doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm watching, the news on the Vikings training camp and following that with avid interest.
That's it. I want to read you. AI is everywhere. I don't have to tell you that. You can tell me more about that than I could ever tell you. Have you read the AI overview of you?
I haven't. No.
Okay, let me read you this, and I want to see if you think this is accurate. In fact, because a lot of this AI stuff is accurate, and then sometimes it gets funky. Here's how it reads.
Okay.
Michael Hurley, a former CIA officer and attorney, served as a senior counsel and team leader for the 9/11 Commission. He co-authored the 9/11 Commission report focusing on counterterrorism policy and investigation. Currently, he is president of Team 3I LLC, a national security and international business strategy company, and advises on 9/11 national security and policy issues. Your thoughts?
It's fairly accurate.
Pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Not bad.
And concise.
Not bad.
I was actually.
So you just asked what ChatGPT or some app to summarize.
Yes. Well, what I did was I'm not even that fancy. I just Googled Michael Hurley 9/11 Commission report, and that's just AI. The AI, what they call the AI overview, came up, and that's exactly what it laid out. And I thought, well, that sounds that's pretty. Based on what I knew, I thought that was pretty accurate and pretty concise as well. So I'm glad we got that out of the way, and you can feel, you can breathe a sigh of relief that you're not being represented by AI. Yeah, because you never know with AI or anything else online, as you well know.
You sure don't.
There's a lot to cover today. I want to start with the summit in Alaska tomorrow. And, several European leaders obviously have expressed a great deal of concern ahead of time about what exactly will be determined, whether the president will be a little bit, too presumptuous about what he can and can't give away. The Europeans obviously have a stake in that. They've expressed concern about that. I think the president has said, has tried to reassure them for whatever it's worth. So is that, at the top of the list for you, is it that? Is it exactly about how far Ukraine might end up being, bartered without them being in on it, how far that indeed might go when the two leaders meet tomorrow in Alaska?
Yeah, I think that's the key question, Dan, because there are definitely red lines that President Zelensky of Ukraine can't cross over in terms of giving up large swaths of land in the Ukraine. On the other hand, there's the reality on the ground, and it seems like Russian forces are making more and more progress. They're conducting very aggressive drone raids every day, every night, and it's leading to a lot of civilian death toll, a high toll. I think that President Trump likes often to conduct diplomacy over social media platforms and state what his positions are. That can be effective sometimes. Other times it can create a bit of doubt, I suppose. It seemed a while ago, not too long ago, Dan, that he was getting very disturbed by Putin because just about every time they spoke by secure telephone call, they would have a talk, and President Trump would come away from that believing that Putin had been kind of open to moving towards a ceasefire. And then within hours after that, there was some highly, highly aggressive and deadly attack that the Russian military did against Ukraine. And that seemed to have soured President Trump on Putin. And he was really, for the first time in my memory, saying some pretty negative things about Putin. And that seems now to have softened a little bit in recent days.
Right.
I think this call with the European leaders was really, really important. In my days in government, on the National Security Council staff, we always tried to keep our principal allies in the loop. We needed that. But, that was sort of at the dawn of video teleconferences. So I remember many video conferences we had with British security services, British Ministry of Defense, with the French as well too. That was back in the day when the conflict in the Balkans was a really big issue. But I cite that because I think personally I believe it's really, really important to keep our allies in sync and informed. A lot of it is just kind of informing them about what you intend to do, or what the U.S. government in this case intends to do. It seemed like President Trump was doing that yesterday and saying, from what I understand in the reports, just in the open press that I've read, that he's not going to get into discussions of swapping land or giving Putin everything he wants. And I think that was reassuring to our European allies and no doubt to Zelensky. But it remains to be seen what happens in the conference and the meeting tomorrow, President Trump is a big believer in the power of his own personality and his ability to influence people. But Putin, on the other hand, is a very tough customer and has war aims that I don't think he's going to change very much.
So I heard a comment from Zelensky, I think just within the last couple of days, in which he said, we're not giving up any land. And a number of experts have attempted to analyze that, and what most of them seem to be saying is, well, that's what he has to say right now. There's no point in him saying anything else at this point. But that the reality is, if there's going to be a deal, he probably is going to have to be willing to give up some land. Now, how much is obviously the question, what's too much, et cetera. But that if there's actually going to be any chance of peace, and then we're back to, is it going to be real peace, which we can discuss in a minute, that eventually he's going to have to cede a certain amount of land. There's been some talk maybe the Ukraine gets some back as well. But is it realistic to think that whether he should have to give up any land or not, he's probably going to have to if he wants to get a deal done?
Well, I think that what it comes down to is whose army is where, and the Russians aren't going to cede where they have their army now, and they believe that and it appears they're advancing. Off the top of my head, Dan, what percentage of Ukraine territory Russia now occupies? But it's a fair amount, I think, 15% or so. And Ukraine is a big country, so that's a big swath of territory. I agree. I think that Zelensky, for his own public, has to take a stance that's sort of an absolutist stance and say we're not ceding an inch, but it will be controlled by where Putin's forces are, the Russian forces are, and if Ukraine is powerless to get them out, that's just the de facto reality. And I think one of the things that could happen, though, is to accept the status quo, that is where the Russian forces are now, and then negotiate for something that Zelensky and Ukraine wants, which would be either membership in NATO or a European forces presence in Ukraine, because Zelensky has the fear that whatever they agree to, the Russians are just going to break that deal in no time. And so there's just a total lack of trust of any kind. And if I were in Zelensky's position, I would have the same view. So if you agree to give up land and accept that status quo, then there's got to be something that you get that's some form of reasonable security guarantee for the future of your country. But let's not forget that what Putin wants is to really make Ukraine a puppet state, get rid of Zelensky and that government, and have a government that's completely subservient to Russian interests or Putin's interests.
In this case, is it a great hindrance or in any possible way a help that Trump is so transactional in these sorts of situations? Because it strikes me as, he wants to be the guy who can say, got a deal. Here's my piece of paper. I'll hold it up. I got a deal done in a way that no one else could. But then the question is, at what cost, right? So is his transactional approach dangerous in a situation like this, or in some other way potentially effective?
Well, he has a unique style for sure, and to use one of his constructions, we'll see what happens. He says that quite often. We'll see what happens out of this summit meeting, and I suppose that it could work to President Trump's advantage, that style that he uses, but I'm always wary of pronouncements that we've reached, for example, if it happens this way, that we've reached this great deal and the Russians have agreed to this. And my attitude is always one of, well, okay, that's what the agreement supposedly says, but who knows what's actually going to happen, down the road. You can say you've got this great agreement, but time will tell whether it actually works to to keep Ukraine secure and give Ukraine some of what it wants. So President Trump's style may achieve okay results, but it's impossible to say right now. I think Putin will try to. He may appear to be tractable and accommodating to some degree, but I just really believe, and this was reinforced, by the way, Dan. I'm sure you read it. This recent New York Times article about Putin believing he has the upper hand now in Ukraine for 3 or 4 significant reasons, but Russia has reversed its losses of that first 6 months of the invasion of Ukraine, and now they seem to be having the whip hand here to some extent. And I have to believe that if it's true that Putin thinks he has the upper hand, that he's not going to negotiate away things that are unfavorable to what he wants.
The comment from former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Mike McFaul, the meeting in Alaska should only be about Ukraine. Trump cannot allow Putin to expand the agenda to talk about economic collaboration, Iran, or other agenda items. Do you agree?
I think that's a good recommendation, yes, because Putin may try to appeal to President Trump's interest in development and economic advantages or business for the United States, things like that, which are laudable goals. But in this context, the big problem in front of them is Ukraine, and Putin, I could see trying to sidetrack it and trying to get some sort of deals that would look good to the public on some of these other things that are not unimportant, but they're just not. They shouldn't be in the forefront right now. The forefront has to be the deaths that are happening in Ukraine, and it's a really tragic situation. The country has been so badly harmed and damaged in so many ways that I agree with Ambassador McFaul that really needs to be the focus and not to get sidetracked in a series of other issues.
Let's also chat about Gaza. I think it was about a week ago, maybe 6 days ago, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's security cabinet approved the proposal for the Israeli Defense Forces to take over Gaza City, largest population in the Strip. We intend to take over all of Gaza, but we don't want to keep it or govern it. That's what Netanyahu said on Fox News. We want to hand it over to Arab forces after defeating Hamas. There are a lot of folks who have historically been favorable to the Israelis and to a certain extent pro-Israeli who believe that whatever the intent is here, that this is potentially going to turn into a disaster and make it harder for those folks to continue to support the Israeli point of view on this. What do you think of that decision and where it might go?
It's such a hard and difficult problem, and I think we can all agree that what set this off and the attack 2 years ago and the killing of 1,200 Israelis by Hamas was a terrible and tragic event, and obviously Israel had to respond. But I think that it would really be stepping into a morass, really a swamp, for Israel to try to occupy all of Gaza again, and just have its soldiers be targets by guerrillas and hit-and-run type tactics, and they would have to crack down even harder. I think that trying to get an Arab force in as soon as possible to deal with the humanitarian issues, and then the West could flood in supplies. The Arab force could police and provide the security necessary. I think that's the proper way to go. One of the interesting developments, Dan, in the wake of what you just cited, is more and more of our allies are coming out very much and saying that they're supporting a two-state solution right now in Palestinian statehood because they think that the policy of Israel is sort of self-destructive now. And even friends of Israel, sort of many of them believe that, and they're lining up behind this idea of Palestinian statehood. But there's so many, you read every day about new developments where just today there's more reporting about more and more Israeli settlements and settlers going into East Jerusalem, for example, and changing the balance there. And in the West Bank as well, just taking over more and more territory. And I think that of course is going to really anger more and more Arab states as well too, and I think just make it more and more difficult to achieve peace, because and I'm not taking sides here so much. It's just an acknowledgement of human affairs and human beings, that when people have a sense of grievance, that they'll always find some way to fight back, and that means chaos and conflict going forward. So I think the move, the plan by Netanyahu and the Israeli cabinet might backfire, actually, and I'm not sure it's the wisest, most prudent policy to invoke now.
We were chatting with Michael Hurley, Edina's own former CIA officer and big contributor to this program on international crises for many, many years now. I want to go back to the end of July, when it certainly looked to me like it was significant. Arab and Muslim states, and that included Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, issued for the first time a joint call for Hamas to disarm and relinquish power. 22-member Arab League, the entire European Union, and another 17 countries backed that declaration. Was signed at a UN conference that was co-hosted by Saudi Arabia and France at the time. So when I heard about this, I almost thought it was being underreported, because it would seem fairly momentous, given that I believe it's the first time that the Arab League has taken this approach, basically pointing at Hamas and saying, in effect, you're part of the problem. But the devil's always in the details. So if it seems impressive, maybe even a sea change in theory, what does it mean, if anything, in practice? Because I don't know that it's manifested itself so far in any kind of meaning. What did you make of it, and where might that go?
Oh, I have to say it caught my attention as well too, and my interest when that announcement came out. One of the things, and I think what your question is really asking is, sort of, it's great for the Arab League to make that declaration against Hamas and saying that they had to go, and it's important if they back it up, because some of these Arab states certainly were supporting Hamas and in the past, but the question I think really comes down to is what teeth is behind it. What are they actually willing to do? Are they actually
What's the
going
commitment?
to completely cut off funding, for example? Are they willing to put their soldiers in as part of this peacekeeping force? I always look to what the I guess you'd call it kind of the principal Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, what they're actually willing to do to back up that announcement, because that would be quite important. What the details on the ground actually turn out to be, rather than just some sort of diplomatic kind of proclamation.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I was going. It sounds nice. It's nice flowery language. But what's the commitment going to be? Is there going to be a military commitment? Is there going to be significant pressure you're putting on? Do you have, how willing are you to literally get involved with boots on the ground, et cetera? And so far the answer seems to be not so much. That's for sure.
Well, I think that's right. And then the wild card in that, of course, is what is Iran doing as well too? Yeah. Is it sending money? Is it still supporting Hamas, and in what ways? With weapons, with other materials, war materials for them. I could see the Israeli Defense Force occupying all of Gaza, but it's becoming kind of a low grade conflict. low intensity kind of conflict, but with casualties to the Israelis and to the Palestinian civilian population, and also making it more difficult to get the kind of supplies in to deal with this crisis we read more and more about, starvation taking place there, which is likely to get worse in the coming months as we head in towards the winter anyway. I just think there's still a lot of unresolved questions. I really would like to see the Arab states stepping up and U.S. leadership, and then choking off any support that Iran is giving Hamas. Because the more you can choke off support for Hamas, the more likely it is to become a spent force, and the Palestinians themselves looking towards other means to better their lives and to rebuild their cities.
Always great to chat with you. We'll definitely stay in touch. I know you'll be watching your favorite football team as we get ever closer to the start of the season, and we hopefully will talk soon. Be well, okay?
Dan, thanks very much for the invitation. I love talking to your audience, and God bless.
They love you too, man. We get great texts every time you're on, Mike. You're very well appreciated. Thanks again for the time.
That's nice to hear.
Michael Hurley, former CIA officer, worked on the 9/11 Commission, co-authored a lot of the report as well. Outstanding, valuable guest to us over many, many years. This will be the top of the hour pause. I'm going to read you as we go to break these observations. The Patriots' final joint practice of the summer is over, and it was a butt-kicking. Minnesota was better in just about every drill. Pats hit a Hail Mary, but few highlights outside of that. Defense got carved, and offense was left to dink and dunk amid lots of pressure. Who wrote it, and how excited and aroused are you if you're a Vikings fan?